All right, y'all, this is the word for the day. So, a lot of y'all know about Moses and the children of Egypt and how they were in slavery. And God sent them, he freed them from slavery and sent them to the desert. Um, a lot of us are in cities. A lot of us are in the cities of slavery. And God wants to remove you from slavery and put you in, the desert of freedom or the wilderness of freedom. And it's crazy how the Bible, always relates to the day that we're in. When the children of Egypt, they had become comfortable in slavery. They had their houses, they had their stoves, their beds, they had their community, their friends. They had, their places where they could gather water. The women could make food, and they could do all of these things, right? The men had to, slave to build the pyramids and, do all the sculptures and all the things for Pharaoh. And they had become comfortable, even though they were moaning and grumbling and complaining and being killed and beaten to death and worked hard. They had become comfortable or complacent in slavery. But see, God knew their value. God knew who they were, and God knew the purpose for their life and the purpose for the generations to come from them. And God no longer wanted them in that place, and he freed them from that place. And when they got into the desert, they grumbled and complained still. They were unwilling to follow the leadership that God put in their life to lead them because they did not see the vision that the leader had. They didn't trust the leadership. So they worship idol gods. They did not submit. And being disobedient to the leadership, worshiping idol gods, having a lack of faith, not doing the things that God wanted them to do, they ended up, eventually dying in the desert, dying in the wilderness. And the next generation went on to take over the promised land. Well, one of the things, that we have to focus on here is sometimes God will remove you from the city of slavery and put you in the desert of freedom, even if you don't want it. And I know a lot of people, especially a lot of men, they get caught up in the keeping up with the Joneses, wanting to provide a better house, better cars, better school, better this, better that, for their wife and for their kids, and they allow themselves to stay in the city of slavery. And the city of slavery for some of you is your corporate jobs. The city of slavery for some of you is the communities at which you live in, the cities at which you live in. That there's a lack of opportunity in these cities. Yeah, they're big cities, and yeah, there's a lot of jobs, but it's very hard for you to get a job. It's very hard for you to keep a job. It's very competitive. It's very expensive, right? And a lot of you are toiling away and spending years and years and years of your life trying to settle in a place in a city that God does not want you to be in. And he's gonna fight you on it. He's gonna allow your plans to fail to prevent you from becoming a slave, to prevent you from getting the job and becoming complacent and staying in that city that he didn't want you in the first place for the next 20, 30 years, and then your children, your seed being there, and them being caught up in the same frustrating life cycle. A lot of you need to get under leadership and allow God to lead you to the desert, lead you to the wilderness. And that wilderness might be your hometown. That wilderness might be your mother's house, your father's house. That wilderness might be getting you a tiny house, or living in a van, or living in a cabin in the woods, or buying you a tiny shed from Home Depot and renovating it and living in that, and getting a regular job, and saving all of your money with your expenses super low so that you can move and do the things that God wants you to do in the time at which he wants them done. But a lot of you are so caught up in looking back at the city, looking back at Sodom and Gomorrah, because you're infatuated, even though it's uncomfortable, even though you're grumbling and complaining in the city, you're infatuated with the king that you can see versus the king that you can't see. A lot of people would rather choose Pharaoh, and they would rather have Pharaoh on their side than have God on their side. A lot of you are infatuated with the tall buildings, the night lights, the pyramids, right? You're infatuated with the celebrities, with the kings, with the pharaohs, and being a part of that community and that infrastructure. And all it's doing is distracting you from what God wants you to be, from where God wants you to go, and from the lifestyle that God wants you to live for your children, for the people that come after you. And if you're the called of God, there's going to be your life is going to be different than people that are not called by God. You can't look at your life and know that you're marked by God and look at somebody else that's not marked by God, that is not a child of God, that never will be a child of God, that does not have the Spirit of God living in them, that their life was not dedicated to God by their parents, by their grandparents. They're not a part of God's family, and you look at their success and the things that they have in life and how easy life is for them, and then you compare your chapter 2 to their chapter 10. It's illogical. You know, a lot of you want the big houses, the big kitchens, the nice cars, the Hellcat, the jewelry, the Instagram life, the vacations, the fake marriages, the fake relationships, you know, and these things have become an idol in your mind. They're an idol, and you worship these things. All you do is look at it all day on social media. You like all the pictures. You listen to it on the radio. You watch all your TV shows about it, and you romanticize this ideal lifestyle that is almost impossible to have, especially in today's age. You know, the house with the white picket fence back, 50 years ago, when anybody could get approved for a mortgage, when anybody that worked a regular factory job could afford to take care of a household of 6 people with just one income. One man could go to work his factory job, be a blue collar person, and take care of his wife at home and his 6 kids, and buy a car for $5,000 and buy a brand new house stick built out of the what was that, JC Penney's or whatever that company was, out of the little catalog for $10,000. And today, with inflation, when you're needing 2 or 3 incomes to have that type of lifestyle, and not 2 or 3 regular incomes, 2 or 3 high level incomes to have that type of lifestyle, it's just unrealistic. And a lot of us have got caught up in staying in the city of slavery. And I'm telling you, either life is going to force you out, or it's going to age you out, or God's going to force you out. So that's just my message for you today. Don't look at other people's lifestyles and compare your lifestyles. Don't look at people's relationships. Don't look at people's money. Don't look at people's, the things that they have, the cars, and romanticize those things, and allow yourself to fall victim, to the lifestyle and being a part of the city of slavery. If you're the called of God, you got to trust in Him, and if He calls you to go to the desert, if that desert is your mom's house, if that desert is the city you grew up in, if that desert is staying in a tiny home, if that desert is sleeping in your car, believe and have faith that God will provide manna from heaven, just like He did for the children of Egypt. He will provide protection, and He will give you the necessary things that you need on your journey until you get to the promised land that He has for you. Peace out.